invocation. And actually, before we do the invocation, I'm just noticing that I invoke myself for the invocation. And so maybe take a moment to do that, to just notice your own breath and the quality of your heart and where your thoughts are, what's happening in your field. And inviting yourself to be fully present as much as you can for the spoken invocation, which is really a surface of words on top of a heart intention. But we feel the invocation to varying degrees depending on how much we show up for it at the beginning. And we don't need to make the heart or the mind or the body or the breath be any different than it is. We just are welcome to notice what's true and to notice how that momentary reality shapes our experience of the prayer. Ironically, if we're well prepared for it, the words are entirely unnecessary. We don't even need to say it. But it can feel sweet to say it. Let's try. Towards the one, the perfection of love, harmony and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance. So today I brought printed versions of the Divine Feminine prayers. Is that fun? It's fun for me. All right, so let me pass these out. I don't think I have my document ready, so I'm just going to hold it up here for those of you on the Zoom or who are going to watch this recording later so you can see. So this first prayer on here for the Divine Feminine is comparable to Murshid's invocation, but intentionally attuned to the existing reality that is already true of the omnipresent divine, which is why it's called Sakina, which means indwelling presence. It means this abiding reality. So let's say this one together. In your presence, Divine Mother, the embodiment of all that is holy, birther and cherisher of the worlds, illuminate our prayers, guide our lives, and hold us ever in your perfect heart. Amen. Well, that felt nice to me. I hope that felt nice to you too. So I did prepare lots of things for our circle today, lots of readings and practices, and the more I think about it, the less I want to do any of those things, and the more I just want to talk with you about the inspirations and the things that are living qualities and feel like crackling energies right now. I use that phrase a lot, don't I? Crackling energy. That is like, what is it that is, it is noisy and it is visceral. That is like the themes of conversations and maybe it's like a community atmosphere of particular intentions and needs on the spiritual path and in everyday life. I noticed that. A lot of people talk to me ongoingly about that intersection, that interwoven relationship between the deliberate, like volitional spiritual path and the everyday life, the mundane. I don't say that in a bad way. That is just, the observable activities and longings of the life in the world. And there's a theme in our Gita's class on Thursday evening about, I'm trying to remember Mershid's exact phrasing. It was clearing the soul from doubts and confusions. That might be an exact quote, but if not, it's pretty darn close. Clearing the soul of doubts and confusions. Which, of course, begins with an understanding that the soul is confused. And that's a little bit of an irony for us, because it is also understood that the soul is perfect. That can the soul actually be confused? In essence, like the nature of the soul is not confusion, but it is obscured from our awareness. And Mershid describes the process of how the soul becomes confused. That is about the journey, what does he call it? This section of teachings is called the soul whence and whither, which I love that phrasing. The soul whence and whither. About the journey of the soul into this manifest existence, the journey of the soul into the body, into the world. And he describes not just the levels of confusion that go from being part of the all-pervading God reality, which exists in a lot of different faith traditions and spiritual paths, that we have the sense of the all-inclusive body of God that includes every soul, the all soul. And then there's a separation that happens that is each individuating being, soul, entity, feeling, extending as an expression of that all-pervading God reality and assuming its own identity, assuming its own existence as a unique form, which in the Sufi perspective, is never actually separate from God, but it starts to think that it's separate from God. Because as it goes through the different planes of, the different realms, that's different than planes, that Mershid describes it as the next closest thing to God is the realm of the angels. And the next realm beyond that is the realm of the jinn. And the next realm beyond that is the physical manifest reality, the human being. Other beings also, but we're concentrating on how do we make sense of this humanness. So in each of those planes, there's a stretch, an extension beyond the all-pervading, inclusive God into some other experience, into some other atmosphere, some other values, some other activities and expressions. And the soul picks up those impressions and gathers that experience and then continues on, and then gathers the experience and impressions from the next realm and continues on. And then when it lands in the body, the first thing that the soul becomes conscious of is being in a limited experience. And the first thing that the soul sees is the mother. And there's an experience that the soul goes through of that and this, of you, thou and I, you and me. And so there's an immediate thing of the soul going, oh, I'm different from that. But there's also a sense of ownership in that. That's my mother. That is my milk. That is my air. That is my whatever. And so the identity is based on those connections of ownership and relationship. And then it moves beyond that into, oh, I recognize that I'm in a body. I must be a body. So that's a level of soul confusion. Then there's a further development of, oh, I'm more than just a body. I'm also feelings and needs and longings and ache. So then it's, I am my feelings. Then it's, I am my thoughts. I am my beliefs. I am my perceptions. And then we have all of our bumps and bruises, and we begin identifying with our woundedness. I am my defenses. I am my pain. I am my fear. I am my reactivity. I am also my joy and my pleasures and my interests, my activities, my delights. And eventually, all of us start waking up to these things of, well, all of these things are part of my life experience, a soul in the world. And none of those experiences or identities are my nature. So then we start trying to reorient back toward the essential nature, which we can conveniently call God, if that's convenient. Maybe it's not convenient, but that idea, that concept is a tangible experience that we have at some point. So, what I've been noticing, all that to say, the theme for today is not that. What I've been noticing is the loyalty to suffering. That is, the ways that we in our very natural, very normal humanness are very attached to the ways that we are uncomfortable, that we are fearful, that we are defended, protective, that we are reactive, and that is the defining characteristics of a lack of freedom and a lack of joy. And that's clear, right? It sucks, but it's clear, right? So then it takes a great act of courage and faith and determination to make choices that are authentically aiming toward joy and freedom and overcoming the loyalty to the suffering. So that's the thing. How do we find an authentic joy and freedom and break free ourselves from the loyalty to the suffering? So I brought a plan for a beautiful melody from our friend Forrest that is based on beautiful words from our friend Pierre Moynadine Jablonski, who was the successor of Murshid Sam and who had a whole lot of suffering, like legit observable suffering, pain and illness and exhaustion, and really needed to grab hold of that, to overcome that in order to be of service in the world and to have a useful, purposeful, fulfilling, meaningful human existence. So this is not a published poem. It was a very short poem that was handwritten by Moynadine after he had been dealing with kidney disease for 30 years and went through a couple of transplants, and like his whole tenure of being the peer was including illness. And when he received the final letter from the clinic where he was receiving dialysis, and it was the final letter that was saying, there isn't anything more we can do for you. He wrote this on the envelope that letter came in. And the words are, "Who am I when I let go? Rain from a clear blue sky." Now, it's easy to think that this is a tragic poem, but it is not. It is the authentic invitation to really be curious and to try to understand who we are, what is the soul beyond all of the attachments and identities. And it's easy to think that we want to let go of the misery and suffering, but we want to cling to the goodness and the joys. But really, we need to be willing and able to let go of all of it. And we can do that if we have a glimpse of the capital R reality, that there is a true nature of our beings beyond all of the attachments. So who am I when I let go is a real question for us. And it is actually a common practice, a spiritual practice in a lot of different traditions, where you have a repeating question of who am I? And then you answer that and go, okay, but what's under that? Who am I? Who am I? And everything that we can think to say is not true. Because the reality is so much more. We think that it's less, but it's more.
Short-sightedness.
We do have that short-sightedness. Yeah. Understandable and still not ultimately desirable. Who am I when I let go? Who am I when I let go? Who am I when I let go? the Sufi Message, Volume 9, The Unity of Religious Ideals. This showed up in the Jesus meditation with Rahima last week and upset people. The essence of all that can teach one to bring out the good in the soul of a human being is to be found in the Beatitudes, as taught by Jesus Christ, the Murshid of Murshids. No? No, Rahima was leading the Jesus meditation that goes through the Aramaic attunement, and right now she just started the Beatitudes. And the first one is, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And the poor in spirit niggled some wounds. Okay. The essence of all that can teach one to bring out the good in the soul of the human being is to be found in the Beatitudes as taught by Jesus Christ, the Murshid of Murshids. And if anybody wants to see it practiced, he may go today and watch the life that the Sufis live in the East. It is they who have understood it properly and have practiced it to their utmost ability. Therefore, the real treasure of Christ's teaching is Sufism, although the latter, Sufism, is not called Christianity. However, the name makes no difference so long as the sense is right. Are you pleased so far? Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Poor in spirit means mild in ego. And the ego is by nature tyrannical. All the tyranny in the world is only caused by the ego. When the ego is laid before God, in other words, when the ego is illuminated with the knowledge of God, it begins to fade. For it denies its limited being, and it realizes the being of God. So it loses all its tyranny and becomes mild, which is being poor in spirit. This makes one's whole life heaven, both here and in the hereafter. Do you like it? Want to hear any of it again? Mm-hmm. The whole thing or just the good parts? Just kidding. That's the whole thing. From the Unity of Religious Ideals on the Beatitudes. The essence of all that can teach one to bring out the good in the soul of the human being is to be found in the Beatitudes as taught by Jesus Christ, the Murshid of Murshids. And if anybody wants to see it practiced, he may go today and watch the life that the Sufis live in the East. It is they who have understood it properly and have practiced it to their utmost ability. Therefore, the real treasure of Christ's teaching is Sufism, although the latter is not called Christianity. However, the name makes no difference so long as the sense is right. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Poor in spirit means mild in ego, and the ego is by nature tyrannical. All the tyranny in the world is only caused by the ego. when the ego is laid before God, in other words, when the ego is illuminated with the knowledge of God, it begins to fade. For it denies its limited being and it realizes the being of God. Here's that 20 more times. When the ego is laid before God, in other words, when the ego is illuminated with the knowledge of God, it begins to fade. For it denies its limited being and it realizes the being of God. So it loses all its tyranny and becomes mild, which is being poor in spirit. This makes one's whole life heaven, both here and in the hereafter. Okay. When the ego is laid before God. That's it. Like, so often we talk about annihilating the ego. We talk about crushing the ego. We use all of this like negative, violent, antagonistic language. What if the ego is just laid before God, which means illuminated by the knowledge of God? The ego is illuminated by the knowledge of God. Illuminated by the knowledge of God. And then the small identities and the conflicts and the confusions fall away. They fade. He said fade. They fade. That sounds so much nicer than other ways you've heard it.
Yeah, it's really good. I like
Still
the word
not good, huh?
fade.
They fade, yeah.
I like what it's saying.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's okay. Yeah. Just fade feels gentle and like you don't have to have as big expectations of it, like being gone all of a sudden. But fading is over time, and that can be a long time. But as long as it's fading.
Well, yeah, he does make that sound so simple and so nice. It's like the knowledge of God. Okay, what is that?
Illuminated by the knowledge of God.
Laying-
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it?
Laying the ego before God. Yeah.
So here's the other thing that, I guess our friend Khalil is coming because he disappeared off of the Zoom. So this showed up in our conversation after Monday meditation. That was, it's hard to bring ourselves to the practices. And I go, no, it's hard to decide that we are ready to not be loyal to the limited self. As soon as we decide that that is not where we want to cling any longer, then we are naturally open to the practices. Then they feel desirable because they are helping us accomplish the goal that we have set for ourselves. If that goal is God, the knowledge of God, the illumination that comes with the knowledge of God, then we are not as loyal to and fiercely attached to those limited identities and patterns and conditions and wounding. That's a hard choice to make. That's legit. I hope you hear that. That's a hard choice to make. I'm a big fan of just being honest that it's a choice. I understand it's a hard choice. And we all have that choice. And it's not as simple as, well, if you wanted it, you would do it. Well, no, because we want things in different directions. Yeah, we want to be illuminated. We want to be free. We want to just abide in joy and peace. That sound good? Yep. Do we want to be reactive and to feel overwhelmed and jostled and confused by everyday life? No. Anybody saying, yeah, sign me up for that? But we sign up for it every single day. We vote with our feet. Okay. Let's see. That's not it. We vote with our dollar. That's what it is.
Because we're Americans.
No, we vote with, like, whatever it is that we actually do. Like, it's an indication. Yeah. I have a friend who, I don't remember what the specific training was that he was doing. That was some kind of a therapeutic model that had a theme, a question, a central question of, based on results, what was your intention?
That's an interesting question.
We're very good at going, what are my intentions that start from right now and move forward? But that negates the fact that everything we've ever chosen in our lives has included intention. So, right now, are you experiencing joy and peace and freedom? Because what you're experiencing right now is the fruit of whatever intentions you have been holding and acting throughout life. It's an excellent question. Based on results, what were your intentions? Whether you were conscious of them or not, whether you thought that that was your intention or not, but where you've ended up is the strongest indication of what the intention was. You know, we don't like that, but it's true. All right. What else? Other things that jump out at you as important? Yummy, confusing, unpleasant, contradictory.
I'm just a little annoyed that poor in spirit does not sound very, like what Mercia describes it. And yet I see, he is speaking from the very same culture that Jesus came from, over in that same neck of the woods, so it gives me, I trust that. And yet I'm like, poor in spirit versus, how does he, I don't even remember now what he said.
Mild in ego.
Mild in ego, yes. I'm like, wow, my mind doesn't go there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
I love that because I've never understood it. Finally hearing Marcia say that, I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he does have his lens, like,
Yeah.
so that's Murshid's interpretation and his way of describing that beatitude. And maybe if he was asked on a different day, he would interpret it a different way.
Mm-hmm.
He did that too. So if this is useful, great. If not, great. But whether it's about the beatitude or not, this like core teaching, when the ego is laid before God, it is illuminated by the knowledge of God. What?
Oh, just, it was a similar question as say here, like, well, that sounds nice.
Oh, yeah.
How do you do that, and how do you lay yourself before God?
Yeah.
And, yeah. What is the knowledge?
Does it feel pretty clear to you that we live in a very pride-oriented society? That we have a very ego-celebratory society?
Yeah.
That we have a lot of arrogance and self-importance and like self-sufficiency and attention and credit to the individual above all, right? So we're not well equipped for this. I mean, culturally speaking, we're not well equipped for this. We're set up in a very hard position to begin with. Yeah. And I brought about a dozen other little teachings from Murshid that are kind of moving us in this process of, okay, so here's the first part. Like, if we are not experiencing as much joy, peace, and freedom as we could, the solution is less self, more God. That's a very like a seed version of it. Less self, more God. Right? Okay. Then, balance. Here's the next reading. Are you ready? This is from the volume 8A, which does not exist. I have not seen it published. I've seen it just in digital forms, but I don't think that it's actually in print. Well, except that I just printed this page. On the theme of Sufi teachings, and this one is balance. In India, there are mystics called majzoobs who go to the extreme of spirituality. Their external self is forgotten to such an extent that they leave the experience of this world altogether. But extremity in everything is undesirable.
That's an interesting sentence after hearing the knowledge of God.
Yeah.
Because that's what I interpreted.
Right.
As meditate all the time.
No, don't meditate all the time, but do meditate every day. But not all day. All right. Extremity in everything is undesirable. Hello, Khalil, welcome. Whether good or evil, to sleep and wake, to eat and fast, to be active and to be still, to speak and to be silent, that is to have balance. A disciple was taught by Muhammad a practice by which he experienced ecstasy. After some days, he came bringing fruit and flowers, which he offered to the Prophet, thanking him greatly and saying, "The lesson that you taught me has been of such great value. It has brought me such joy. My prayers, which used to last a few minutes, now last all day." Muhammad said, "I am glad that you liked the lesson, but please, from today, stop the practice." The Sufi teaches balance by posture and movement, which includes the control of the actions and the activity of the body, by the practice of namaz, wazifa, and zikr. The Sufi teaches the balance of the mind by concentration. To sit at home and close the eyes is not concentration. Though the eyes are closed, the thoughts go on. It is important to choose the right object for concentration. By concentration and meditation, a person experiences ecstasy. By the control of the self, a person experiences the higher world or plane in which all things are one. For this, the guidance of a murshid, a teacher, is needed. Otherwise, the balance will be lost. No one can accomplish this by themselves. And if anyone could, that one would become so interested in what they experience there that they would become absent from this world. Absent-mindedness, even lunacy, and many other evil consequences would result. There is no greater happiness or bliss than ecstasy. A person is always thinking, "I am this which I see. This small amount of flesh and blood and skin is I." But by ecstasy, the consciousness is freed from the body, from this confinement, and then it experiences its true existence above all sorrow and pain and trouble. This is the greatest joy. To experience this and to keep control over the body and the senses through which we experience all the life of this world, this is to have balance. This is the highest state. No meditate all day. Meditate a little each day.
And then go make breakfast.
And then make breakfast.
And go to the bathroom.
Take good care of the body and be masterful about life in the world. You like it? No.
So,
We just want to meditate all day. That's much more fun. Sorry, go ahead.
It says that concentration is on an object.
Yeah.
Something like that, right?
Yeah.
How do you know what the object should be, and is that coming from the teacher? And if teacher, what do you do?
Yeah. So often what Murshid recommended was a symbol. Not a clingy symbol, but an image of a specific thing. That percussionist over here, Bill is like, darn it, I wanted to concentrate on a symbol, which you could, that would be fine, if you love it. If you love the symbol, right?
Even those little ones. Little splash.
So often what Murshid would recommend as the object of concentration was a symbol that is, for example, a 5-pointed star, or the image of an open door, or a dot with a circle, or, that gives you an idea, a cross, or a 4-pointed star. And he would assign those for people. He'd be like, here's your object of concentration that is based on either his intuition or something that he heard or felt from that individual person. So the object of concentration. There's also, it could be any object that is just a thing that you could concentrate on, a candle flame or a flower or a tree outside the window, or maybe you're sitting under a tree, or so it can be anything. It can be, in the Sufi story, a cow.
What about on Murshid?
Yes, you could concentrate on Murshid. I think there's a little bit of trickiness about concentrating on Murshid. This isn't a discouragement from that, but because Murshid, when we concentrate on Murshid, the invitation is to see and feel Murshid as a living being that is not a still object. That, we, as a Tasawwuri practice, as a concentration on Murshid, it is his living, ongoing, embodied being. So we see him fully formed in every detail, able to open and close his eyes, sit in our posture, breathe with us. So is that an object? It is someone to concentrate on. That works.
So maybe Tassel would just be a separate concentration practice, or just a different.
It's a particular concentration practice. You could use it. It doesn't have to be separate from, but it's a specific form in itself. Did that answer your question?
That confused mine.
Excellent.
So I'm curious, what does he talk about the purpose of concentration? As concentrating, it's just like training the mind for
Yes.
everyday experiences.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is why he's saying sitting quietly with your eyes closed is not concentration. Necessarily. Like, you can do a concentration practice while you're sitting with your eyes closed, but it will be that you focus your mind entirely on a specific image that is a symbol, a specific thing. and you don't let your mind go wandering off to other things.
Mhm.
But that's why concentration practices are often instructed as eyes open on something that is in front of you. Yeah.
So is it not meditation then if you're meditating on asking for guidance to help you move something, to help your heart open? Is that, would he say not meditation then?
Indeed, the way that Murshid defines meditation, it's a different thing, which is also not concentration. So some of you hear this like once a month. Here it is again. We can go through the different activities of the mind that Murshid defines in certain ways. That we go first is imagination, that is just letting the mind do whatever it does, bopping around. Thought is when you direct your mind in a particular direction for a particular purpose. Not necessarily concentration, but a specific focus of area, like doing the dishes. You're thinking about doing the dishes. Is that a concentration? Maybe not, but it's a thought process.
Right.
It's an intentional direction of mind. Then concentration is the first one that he's describing, that is, you choose a specific object and you hold your mind there. That's what he defines as concentration. Then there's, once you have established that focus of the mind with consistency and discipline, you are able, with practice, to relax the concentration and your mind will stay on that object. And that, without effort, but the concentration direction is still there, that's called contemplation. It's no longer an effort, so it's not that you're trying to do something, but then you get to have an experience of that thing, to just be in that presence, in that energy that you have cultivated through your concentration, contemplation. Beyond that, there is a dissolving of the object itself, of any hint of the concentration and the effort, and there is a pure, relaxed, abiding, just being in that experience, and that is what Murshid calls meditation. Which is not a process at all, which is totally different. And he would acknowledge that. If he were here right now, he'd be like, yeah, what y'all call meditation, I don't call meditation, but that's what you call it, that's fine. Like, if you're sitting quietly, reciting a prayer, asking for guidance, repeating a wazifa, looking at a tanka, at like a sacred painting, doing something in particular, if you're efforting, he wouldn't call that meditation. So meditation is a peaceful, still, effortless beingness. Then there's one more. The next one is when you cease to exist, that you are not experiencing yourself as a being or as a consciousness, that you are dissolved in the all-pervading capital R reality, and that he calls realization. So from thought, concentration, then contemplation, then meditation, then realization. And they don't have to go in sequence like that, but that's kind of the way that you could define them on a line. Yeah.
So the purpose of, I forget which one, when you're concentrating on, say, a star or something, the purpose of that is just to gain that focus of mind?
That is one of the core purposes, yes, to master the activity of the mind, to discipline the mind so that you are in charge, and your mind, with whatever she chooses to do, is not directing your life experience. You are.
How long is he suggesting?
Different for different people. If this is something that you personally are wanting to take on, 5 minutes. And then you could extend it more than that, but he would probably recommend you focus on a particular thing, and probably not a symbol that you choose for yourself, because it's always the ego that chooses. Whether it's good or bad, it's always the ego that chooses for ourselves. If I'm like, I want to do a particular practice, it will be an ego choice. So it would be something that either I suggest for you, that of course as a teacher I always go like, well, how does this feel? Maybe this would be a good idea. Does this seem like a useful thing? Would this be enjoyable for you? Because if it's not, you're not going to do it, and I'm not going to suggest it, right? But so Murshid would probably say, concentrate on the same object every day, 5 minutes a day, for 30 days to start. Don't do it longer than that, because you won't be consistent about it. Maybe you sit down the first time and you go, I can do 20 minutes. And then the next day you go, I can do 20 minutes. It's been 12 minutes and I'm done. And then the third day you go, well, I thought I could do 20 minutes, but now I'm discouraged and I have already made myself feel bad for not accomplishing 20 minutes yesterday. So I'd be lucky to do 5, but I probably shouldn't even bother. So, that's not for you personally. Really, everyone here is like,
Sounds
yep.
great.
Right? So he would say, same object each time. Make it as consistent as you can. Same time of day, same place in your home, same posture, set things up to support yourself in a ritualistic way, so that you have the support of the consistency is powerful and helpful for us. So we use all of those tools that we can. Yeah.
Here's a silly question of detail. Is concentration like thinking about the thing? So this is a rose. I'm bringing myself to the beauty of the rose, the color of the rose, the shape of the rose. I'm just curious.
Yeah. Thinking about it is not the same as concentrating on it, right? So all of those things are lovely for your enjoyment, but enjoyment is not the point of concentration. Concentration is discipline. So really, the way that this is more Murshid Sam, but Murshid Sam gave a lot of instruction about concentration, and he said it's best to choose an object that's very simple, that has very little detail, very little for you to get imaginative about or have associations with, or for that to lead you off in other directions or stories about it. It's best to choose something that is very simple, like a geometric object that could be like a plate. Or I have brought, for our group practices on concentration, I've brought a piece of fruit. A tomato is an excellent one, especially if it's just one color, that there isn't a variation. It's just one round red sphere. And then you put that with nothing behind it as much as possible, like a solid colored cloth or something, so that you have as little distraction as possible, and you can really focus on bringing your mind entirely to a single point, single object, and try to keep your mind on the simplicity of it, and not to make it entertaining.
It is a discipline. It's just truly
Yes.
a discipline. Just bringing your mind back.
Yeah, it's very boring. No, it doesn't need to be boring. That, if we're really concentrating on something, it becomes living. And that's part of it, is that it becomes a living thing, and we see that it has a life, that it has a light that shines from it.
That is helpful.
Yeah.
It helps understand the goal behind it.
Well, the goal is to discipline the mind. Now, that's on a specific object. There's another level to it when it's on a symbol, that Murshid talks a lot about symbols and the variety and the layers of interpretation, and that especially symbols like a 5-pointed star or a crescent moon or something like that, that has lots of layers, that has been used throughout all of human history and has meant different things at different times to different people, but there's a magic about it, that there's a core essence that is expressed through the surface, which is the observable shape of a symbol. But it's not about the observable shape. That just happens to be the way that that essence of energy can make itself known, can make itself perceived. So if there's an object of concentration that is given as a practice because of the symbolism behind it, then you have simultaneously the focus of the mind, the discipline of the mind on a specific thing, and also the benefit of the essence that arises through that particular symbol for concentration. That wouldn't be true with the tomato. Necessarily.
What's the symbol of the tomato? Light.
I don't know.
Human light.
Right. That's a good question. Okay. Welcome back. Shall we read some more now that you're back?
Thanks for reading. If you were.
Where were we? We were on volume 8A. So this one is from volume 1. Actually, I don't know if we need to do this one because I just talked so much at you. We'll let Marcia do the talking. Volume 1. The subject is Towards Manifestation. Infants who come on earth with their angelic qualities and sometimes pass away without having experienced the life of the grown-up show us the picture of the original condition of the soul. Infants show us the original picture of the soul. The idea that the angels are nearer to God is right according to this doctrine. Souls who have not journeyed farther are naturally close to the divine spirit. They are angels. Someone asked the prophet why man was greater than the man who causes all the bloodshed on the earth, while the angels are always occupied in the praise of God. Why are men considered better than angels? It is said in the Quran that the angels knew nothing of the earth. They knew God, and so they occupied themselves with God. But man is greater, for when man comes to earth, he has much in the world to be occupied with and still pursues God. You like it? The angelic sphere is free from passion and emotion, which are the source of all wrong and sin. Souls pure of all greed and desires given by the denseness of earth are angels who know nothing else but happiness, for happiness is the real nature of the soul. This is another section of the same, I skipped some paragraphs. Souls on the earth retain something of the angelic quality. Therefore, they readily respond and are attracted without resistance to innocence, happiness, and goodness of another person. Did you get that? I didn't, so I'm going to say it again. I'm glad you got it. Souls on the earth retain something of the angelic quality. Therefore, that is why they readily respond and are attracted without resistance to innocence, happiness, and goodness of another person. If they knew that it is because this is the original quality of the soul, they would develop the same in their own being. As Rumi has said, people are drawn to me, and they shed tears with my cries, and yet they know not what it is in me that attracts them. Seeking after goodness, innocence, and happiness helps the angelic qualities to develop in a soul. Here's that again. Seeking after goodness, innocence, and happiness helps the angelic qualities to develop in a soul. Spirituality, therefore, is the development of the angelic quality. Love of spirituality is the longing for the angelic realm. It is homesickness. Does that feel sad and sweet at the same time?
Makes me miss the babies.
Yeah. Yeah. Spirituality, therefore, is the development of the angelic qualities. And love of spirituality is the longing for the angelic realm. It is homesickness. That's what we want to do. We do a better job of it when we feel safe. Here's the wazifa that lifts the heart, the consciousness, and attunes our souls to the highest vibrations available to us. I'll say, Ya Azim. Ya Azim. And Azim has qualities of greatness and majesty and exaltation that is a joy and a light, which is our nature. It is the nature of the soul. And we recognize it as the nature of the soul, which is why we are drawn to it. So, as we recite Ya Azim, we'll do it somewhat slowly, but the suggestion is that we start the Ya aiming downward into this like physical embodied existence, and then Azim is lifted up. And you can either feel that as like you're taking this physical form and sending it upward into the celestial realms so that you can feel that connection and that aspiration. And you could try that, and you could also feel like there's already this connection, like a cord of light that connects your physical experience and the soul that is within this body, connected with the absolute, the infinite, the God reality, the realm of the angels. And that when you rise up, you remember that connection so that all of that beauty and light and magnificence just streams down into this experience of your own being. So, and maybe it's both of those things. Maybe you can concentrate on both at the same time, or maybe one or the other. Maybe you do one for a while, and then like once you've like sent yourself up there enough, then you can be like, okay, stream it on down, you know? So you can see what that feels like for you. So they're slower recitations, I hope. You can go at whatever tempo you want. And if your tempo is different from mine, that's totally fine. And we'll just have a lovely celestial cacophony of Ya Azim radiating through. Okay, so I'll do a few by myself to It's not necessarily setting an example, because you don't have to do it the way I am, but you'll see, get a sense of how I'm doing it, and then find your own way in. Ya Azim, 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 Ya Azim. Keep going. Ya Azim. I'm noticing that if I keep my teeth close to each other, they vibrate and create a lovely echo throughout my head that is in my skull that feels like it awakens that connection to the higher realms. You might try that if it feels good for you. Ya Azim. Ya Azim. Ya Azim. Ya Azim, 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 Ya Azim. About three more. Ya Azim, Ya Azim, Ya Azim. And keep Ya Azim happening on the breath. And then releasing the concentration on the phrase and simply breathing in the atmosphere. Feeling the body and the heart. On the subject of love. Love is the state of mind in which the consciousness of the lover is merged in that of the object of one's love. It produces in the lover all the attributes of humanity, such as resignation, renunciation, humility, kindness, contentment, patience, virtue, calmness, gentleness, charity, faithfulness, bravery, by which the devotee becomes harmonized with the Absolute. Here it is again. Love is that state of mind in which the consciousness of the lover is merged in that of the object of love. It produces in the lover all the attributes of humanity, such as resignation, renunciation, humility, kindness, contentment, patience, virtue, calmness, gentleness, charity, faithfulness, bravery, by which the devotee becomes harmonized with the Absolute. Absolute is capitalized. As one of God's beloved, a path is opened for one's heavenly journey. At the end, one arrives at oneness with God, and one's whole individuality is dissolved in the ocean of eternal bliss, where even the conception of God and man disappears. See, as always, the answer is love. The result is less self, more God.
I'm so glad you're reading that part, because earlier we're talking about the ego, and I'm just thinking, I would lay my ego down for love. You know, I would. Whatever illumination and knowledge, I would go find out, from love.
Yeah. That's why you're a Sufi.
That's why I'm a Sufi.
The path of love. Maybe we got tricked. Maybe we were like, it's the path of love. And they were like, that means getting over the ego. I'm like, oh, damn. Can't we just love and keep the ego? No. As one of God's beloveds, a path is opened for one's heavenly journey. At the end, one arrives at oneness with God, and one's whole individuality is dissolved in the ocean of eternal bliss, where even the conception of God and man disappears. There's a little poem included in this. I don't think that it's his poem, but he didn't attribute. So presumably everyone knows it. You can tell me who wrote it. Although love is a sweet madness, yet all infirmities it heals. Saints and sages have passed through it. Love both to God and man appeals. Maybe he did write that. That kind of sounds like him. Okay, this is another section from Volume 2, The Mysticism of Music, Sound, and Word, for Salim's joy. The Sufi visualizes the object of one's devotion in one's mind, which is reflected upon the mirror of one's soul. Did you get that? Nope. Here it is again. The Sufi visualizes the object of one's devotion in one's mind, which is reflected upon the mirror of one's soul. See it in your mind, and it reflects in your soul. What is it that you love? Put that in your mind, and it will be reflected in your soul. Okay? I didn't use any different words. The heart, the factor of feeling, is possessed by everyone. Although with everyone, it is not a living heart. This heart is made alive by the Sufi, who gives an outlet to one's intense feelings in tears and in sighs. By so doing, the clouds of Jalal, the power which gathers with one's psychic development, fall in tears as drops of rain, and the sky of one's heart is clear, allowing the soul to shine. This condition is regarded by Sufis as the sacred ecstasy. Now you want to hear all that again, don't you? Here it is 3 more times. Okay, we're good with the first part, right? The Sufi visualizes the object of one's devotion in one's mind, which is reflected upon the mirror of the soul. The heart, the factor of feeling, is possessed by everyone. Everyone has a heart. Although with everyone, it is not a living heart. This heart is made alive by the Sufi, who gives an outlet to one's intense feelings in tears and in sighs. The Sufi cries and sighs as an outlet for the intense feeling of the living heart. By so doing, by crying and sighing and tending so beautifully to the living heart, by so doing, the clouds of Jalal, the power which gathers with one's psychic development, fall in tears as drops of rain. The clouds of power which gather through your development fall in tears as drops of rain, and the sky of the heart is clear, allowing the soul to shine. This condition is regarded by Sufis as the sacred ecstasy.
That process of feeling, expressing, feeling, coming back to, I think of the word confusion in the beginning, You know, the soul is confused, but he allows the soul to shine. Wow.
Go ahead.
Kind of irrelevant, but I so understand why there are so many forms that love Sufism. Love, emotion, devotion.
There's so many what?
Enneagram 4.
Fours. Oh, I don't know.
There's a bunch of us in this community.
Yeah. The romantics. The imaginative, loving romantics.
Oh, yeah.
Just love anything.
Yeah. So here's the next section on ecstasy. Is it okay if we just go into the next section? Are you enjoying this? Is it useful? Maybe. We'll see. Ecstasy is called wajd by Sufis. W-A-J-D. Wajd. Ecstasy is called wajd by Sufis. It is especially cultivated among the Chishtis. That's us. This bliss is the sign of spiritual development and also the opening for all inspirations and powers. This is the state of eternal peace, which purifies from all sins. Only the most advanced Sufis can experience wajd. Although it is the most blissful and fascinating state, those who give themselves entirely to it become unbalanced. For too much of anything is undesirable, as previously stated. As the day's labor is a necessary precursor of the night's rest, so it is better to enjoy this spiritual bliss only after the due performance of worldly duties. You like it?
Yeah.
Damn it, I have to keep my job. What? Yeah. Ecstasy is called wajd by Sufis. It is especially cultivated among the Chishtis. This bliss is the sign of spiritual development and also the opening for all inspirations and powers. This is the state of eternal peace, which purifies from all sins. Only the most advanced Sufis can experience wajd, although it is the most blissful and fascinating state. Those who give themselves entirely to it become unbalanced. For too much of anything is undesirable. As the day's labor is a necessary precursor of the night's rest, so it is better to enjoy this spiritual bliss only after the due performance of worldly duties. Sorry. Sufis generally enjoy wajd while listening to music called qawwali, special music producing emotions of love, fear, desire, repentance, etc.
Fear, even. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. There are, jazz was not included in there. Murshid was not a fan of jazz.
We've established that, but we can go.
But somehow Salim keeps showing up, even with that.
I justify it real quickly by the jazz he was listening to was the 1920s, totally different from today. If he had heard us play, there's some ego for you.
Not for me.
In jest, I say.
There are 5 aspects of wajd. Wait, you don't care about that, do you? No, of course we do. 5 aspects of wajd, of ecstasy. Wajd of dervishes, which produces a rhythmic motion of the body. Wajd of idealists, expressed by a thrilling sensation of the body, tears and tears and sighs. Wajd of devotees, which creates an exalted state in the physical and mental body. Wajd of saints, which creates perfect calm and peace. And Wajd of prophets, the realization of the highest consciousness, called Sirat-ul-Muntaha. I don't know that phrase. Like, I've had my eyeballs on it before, but I don't know it. Sirat-ul-Muntaha. One who, by the favor of the Murshid, arrives at the state of Wajd is undoubtedly the most blessed soul and deserves all adoration. Ecstasy. It's prescribed. Daily ecstasy.
After your work
That is
done.
part of the Sufi path. After doing your chores, and making your bed and cleaning your room, then you can have your
Washing the
ecstasy.
dishes.
All the things. How are we doing? How much more did I have for you? Oh, there's one more little section. But. Salim, your melody for This Is Not My Body just popped into my head. Do you remember how to play it?
I can figure it out.
I bet
It's
you
usually
can.
the key I struggle to remember.
I'll hand this to you, and I'll start singing, and you come find me. Or are you gonna start playing, and then we'll find you?
Go ahead.
No, that's fine.
I'm just,
If you feel like you know it.
I remember this last time we started too high, so. I think it's that.
This is not my body. This is the temple of God. This is not my heart. This is the altar of God.
This is not my body. This is the temple of God. This is not my heart. This is the altar of God.
It is said that if we were meant to meditate all day, to do nothing but praise God all the time and nothing else, we would have stayed in the realm of the angels. The fact that we have landed in human form in this manifest, magnificent reality is not a mistake. It's not an accident. It's not a confusion of the divine plan. It is an expression of the purpose of this soul to be in manifest reality, to be in the world, to experience everything we can on this earth plane. The love, the joy, and the sorrow, and the struggle. So that when we do find ourselves released from this physical body and returned to the all-embracing heart of God, we have a good story to tell. And she feels like it was worthwhile sending out these agents to experience the world for her. Thank you, Celine. Worship. Here's the last section that I brought to read. We may ask. Were you going to say something or ask something?
I had a question, but I can.
Well, it started with "we may ask," so I think it's probably best for you to be able to ask.
Okay. In the last section, like, I agree that we're here to experience this life and to be a part of this world,
Yeah.
and to know and remember God.
Yeah.
Yeah, just explain a little more. It felt a little scriptive of, we're not supposed to think of God all the time or be in ecstasy, that there's almost a script of when we're supposed to.
No. I
Yeah,
just mean,
which
like,
I know,
we're not supposed
so-
to sit quietly and meditate all day.
In the cave.
That's like separate from the world.
Yeah.
That we are invited and encouraged to keep God in our awareness as an attunement in our everyday life.
Yeah.
But it's keeping us company as we do our work and experience the world, not separate from. It's not one or the other, it's both and.
Yeah.
In Murshid's way of describing it in some passage, 8 paragraphs back, when he was saying that the human privilege, joy, experience is about being in the world and longing for God.
Yeah.
Doing that, being pulled to pursuing God, wanting to experience God, because we recognize that as home. So here we are, and we're not supposed to check out from here. We're not supposed to catapult out, either as spiritual bypass or I could call it all kinds of things. Like, it's called all kinds of things. That we want to have the experiences of joy and peace and ecstasy and union after doing our chores. And we want to keep that consciousness in our everyday life. We want to cultivate as much love and graciousness, tolerance, friendship, harmony, service as we can in our everyday life. And this is all part of the list of practices that Murshid wove in, that were just like plunked in the middle of one of those paragraphs back there, that said, this is why we do nimaz, wazifa, zikr, that is so that we are resourced and attuned for our everyday lives. That we feel that connection from the beginning of our day, throughout the day, in every breath. But not instead of showing up in the world, along
Right.
with.
Yeah. And that ecstasy can be doing the dishes or singing a song. I mean,
Well, if you can attain ecstasy while doing the dishes, more power to you. Hi, Lindsay.
how about cooking eggs for others?
Yeah, so really what he's describing as ecstasy, you cannot experience while you're doing the dishes. No. Does it, like, the absolute overwhelm of bliss, that you don't exist anymore. You have been obliterated into bliss. There's no doing the dishes while you're in ecstasy.
How about one below it?
Yeah, aim for that. Aim for that.
I'm just trying to write the both and is there anytime.
Yeah. Okay. So there are all of these different forms of practice that Murshid recommends, and of course, Murshid always says, "Go ask your teacher." That in his time, he was the teacher, or he was teaching teachers. And so it's like we have certain things that we are instructed to do first thing in the morning every day. And almost always that would include the elemental purification breaths, the breaths of earth, water, fire, air that we do all the time, and debatably ether. And some kind of a qasab practice that is like control the breath. That is, grab hold of your own experience and be the master of your own life by shaping the breath according to your will, right? And he almost always gave some kind of concentration and a prayer, or two prayers. So sometimes it was doing the prayer Nayaz, that's the healing prayer. Sometimes it was the prayer Psalm, and often he would say, if you're going to do Psalm, you should also do Salat, because Psalm is solar and Salat is lunar, so you have both the magnificence and the personal felt experience. All right, so you have some prayer, some breath, and you can do also wazifa, which is inviting the particular qualities of God that you want to embody and experience in your everyday life. Then you go into your everyday life.
Right.
After you've done your chores, then you can have your experiences of ecstasy.
So those are the chores you're talking
I know,
about.
I'm being a little bit flippant about it. It's not that formulaic.
Yeah.
But all of these things should be included in our everyday lives.
Yeah.
It's what gives us strength, courage, capacity, generosity, attunement. It reminds us of our connection with our source and our goal.
Yeah.
That is all of the stability and strength that we need. Yeah.
This is very meaningful to me because I tend to do the opposite. I seek the ecstasy. In fact, last Sunday I did, and I did my prayers, and I did them forever, and then my whole day was like disjointed. This is very meaniful.
Excellent. So
Go with
Mohammed would
manifesting.
say, I'm so glad that you enjoyed that. Now stop the
Now stop.
practice.
Yes, it came to me.
Cut it out.
I'm not telling you to stop it. I'm like, but he's very clear that it's about the moderation of the practices that support you in your everyday life, not that take you out of your everyday life. Okay, here's the last little bit on worship. The theme is worship. We may ask why we should worship God, and whether the theoretical knowledge of God's law in nature is not sufficient for the highest realization. Like, yeah, I know it's God. I don't need to do anything about it. The answer is no. Theoretical knowledge of a subject can never take the place of experience, which is necessary for realization. Written music cannot entertain unless it is played, nor the description of perfume delight our senses unless we smell it. No recipes of the most delicious dishes satisfy our hunger. Nor can the theory of God give complete joy and peace. We must actually realize God, or attain that state of realization which gives eternal happiness through the admiration and worship of nature's beauty and its source.
Oh, okay.
Let's go back to our divine feminine prayers. Which one do we want to visit? Oh, I think Abhida has the most nature, combining all the things. It has all the names for the divine not all of them. It has a bunch of names for the divine feminine that are all on the back, so you can see them later and know what you're talking about. And let me see if I can hold this up, because I was ill-prepared, but... Oh, I sent these to you, didn't I?
Yeah.
You Zoomers, so you actually have it, but I'll try to make it available for you anyway. Is that going to work? Maybe? We'll see. Ready? Abhida, which means devotee or worshiper. Radiant Earth Mother, guardian, source of life, we hear your sacred word in the beating of our hearts and in the silence between breaths. Our bodies know you as Gaia, as Grandmother Spider, and as Sheila Nagig. Our minds know you as Inanna, as Saraswati, and as Amaterasu. Our hearts know you as Yemanja, as Uma Mariam, and as Kuan Yin. Our souls know you as Tiamat, as Ereshkigal, and as Sekhmet. From the beginning we have honored you as Coatlicue, as Lilith, and as the Fates. And we have loved you as Eve, as Miriam, and as Rabia Aladawiya. We know your beloved face in the tender spring blossoms, the ripe fruits of the land, and the stillness of winter. We see your courage in a birthing mother, and your generosity in her flowing milk. You are the rising sun, the fresh dawn, the fire in our bellies, and the purifying rain. You are the standing stones, the growing grain, the flowing river, and the rush of bird wings. From your protective arms we are sent forth. You light our path and welcome us home again. All our lives are held in your compassionate embrace. Speak to us through your divine nature. Let us feel your living presence in the rosemary, orange blossom, thistle, and sage. Let us recognize you in the creatures of earth, sky, and sea. We live in you, and we listen for your wisdom in our bones, our blood, and our clear intelligence. With each thought, feeling, desire, and action, help us to remember that our souls are an emanation of your divine being.